Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma. Let's go. Hi, friends. I hope you're all so fabulous. So I thought for this episode, I might do a little catch up and a little heart to heart. Now, I don't often record solo episodes like this. Usually there's a theme or a topic or a subject or, some sort of piece of advice, because I'm never quite sure whether people are interested in hearing the behind the scenes of my journey, my practice, my life, right? Because this podcast is not really about me. I know I'm a nosy bee, okay? And I'm usually very curious to listen to episodes like this one myself. So what I did a little poll on my Instagram stories, and the people have unanimously spoken. So here we are. I'm recording this catch up. By the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, why not? Please come follow me at vilma.usaite. Though I will admit that I've been a little more quiet lately, and I shared about that on Instagram as well. Summers are such a quiet and introspective and very tender time for me, and it really just feels like winter. Like summers feel like winter for me, and like I want to hibernate. And it makes zero sense. And I feel like I've mentioned about this many times on this podcast, how I have a bit of summer blues, and I do have SAD, seasonal affective disorder, except that my SAD will manifest itself in summer, where majority of others would only experience these symptoms probably more so in sort of the darker, the colder months of the year. Anyway, just wanted to share that. The reason I'm talking about this is because I feel like summers are usually my time to check in, to evaluate, to recalibrate, and course correct for the coming months. Especially when it comes to my personal life and what I'm going through, and obviously my professional life. So I've been doing a lot of that this summer, and I thought I'd let you in on that because perhaps for some of you, it would be interesting to hear. For some of you, it might be perhaps even helpful to hear what I'm going through and how I'm normalizing things for myself. Some of what I'm going to share is obviously still an ongoing process. As you know, healing and change, it never stops. There are layers and there are cycles that need to be honored. But once I feel like we sign up and commit to leading this authentic life as much as possible, right? Because we do have blind spots, but as much as possible, when we claim that we're here to lead authentic lives, make authentic choices, we will always be checked by the universe. The universe will come and test us, and there'll always be a new level, a new challenge, a new learning opportunity. So I feel like the first piece that I was sitting with this summer is my practice and what I was starting to feel, what I felt for a really long time, but I was kind of resisting it and ignoring it. So I'm going to talk about two shifts. There are two shifts I feel like that happened, and they're still in progress. One is more of the collective shift in the world and in this industry, and another one is a shift within me as a practitioner and as a guide. So, as some of you know, for the longest time, I have been focusing on women going through a career change. I don't know if you're new to this podcast. Maybe it's news to you. If you've been listening to this podcast, you already know that it's all about career change, career change, career change. And when I started out, I started with a one-on-one practice, and I have since then supported many, many women with finding alignment and On top of that, I also had groups and built these really beautiful mini communities of like-minded women going through this process of reclaiming their truth and authenticity in their professional lives. And what's really interesting, and to my surprise as well, so many of them would come and say that it was so much more than career alignment for them. And it was also about reconnecting and remembering who they are and what they actually want. And perhaps even revisiting their old dreams and these quiet whispers. And honestly, like for me as a guide and as a practitioner, there's nothing more fulfilling than seeing these women remember and reclaim their light and their strength and the truth. And that is the reason why I do what I do. Now, when I started working, when I transitioned into coaching from management consulting from banking, I really just worked with anyone and everyone, like literally. I didn't care which industry they wanted to transition into. I was just an eager beaver. I was like, you want it? Let's go. Let's make this happen. And honestly, I love that for my past self because that's where I learned so much. Being in the trenches with different backgrounds, different personalities, different age groups. There's so many different people that I worked with, and I was just not selective. I was like, listen, if universe put you in front of me, if you're on my path, it's meant to be, and I will embrace this work. And honestly, that might not be like popular opinion right now, where perhaps you think you need to be more discerning. So I can only talk for myself. But honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because me being open to meet all of these different people, that was my initiation. That was my actual coaching university. Not all of the certifications and courses that I've done. That was my coaching university. So again, from my perspective, if you're just starting out in some sort of healing profession or in coaching, while you obviously want to follow your authority and intuition, and if you meet someone and they're a complete hell no, obviously you don't want to follow through and commit to working with them. But also don't be so precious. Don't be afraid to work with more quote unquote challenging clients. And when I say challenging, I don't mean that there's something wrong with them or that they're not coachable or that they're not good human beings. When I say challenging, I mostly mean different. Because our most challenging clients as practitioners will be the people who are the opposite to us, who are completely different, who operate differently, who have different energy frequency. Because it's so easy to work and so easy to kiki and have a laugh with someone who feels like your long lost sister, your soulmate client. And we need those soulmate clients. But you will mostly grow and you will mostly mature as a practitioner with someone who is your personal enigma. Oh boy, if only I could share some stories and instances that I had to go through, but obviously I can't. I'm very, very careful not to share things and situations that I do not have permission to share. And I feel like that privacy is really something that I deeply, that is sacred to me. Sorry for the cliffhanger, but I'll need to take those stories to my grave because they are not coming out, at least not for me. So this is all to say that when I started, I was like, yes, let's go. I had a lot of one-on-one clients, probably too many. I kept on adding to my plate. And honestly, I was just happy to roll with that wave. There was a lot of enthusiasm. There was a lot of energy. There was a lot of momentum that I really didn't want to lose when I started out. Now, with time, what started happening and what I started noticing, there were several things. And you best believe that I was trying to resist what I was noticing, okay? Because what happens when we transition in our careers and we say build a new business or we completely switch industries, we do 180 shift. When we kind of settle, we're like, okay, I'm done. Thank you, universe. I'm good now. Like, I don't want any more change. I've just gone through a big change. Let me just do my thing. But that's not how it works. That's not how it works. That surrendering and that embracing of new versions of yourself will never stop. And I know for me, it was hard to embrace that continuous change. The shifts or sort of the things that I started noticing, the patterns that I started noticing is that firstly, majority of the women that I was attracting into my orbit were budding healers or light workers. And I do, by the way, have dedicated episodes for them specifically, and I talk about what's a light worker and so on. And remember that happened actually a while back. I think it was like a few years into this podcast. That's when I had a realization of where I need to go next, and I've been resisting it in different ways, shapes, or forms for a long time. And I remember, and you know what? I have the worst memory. I tell that to all of my clients. If you worked with me, you know that, where I'll be like, just goldfish moment where I'm like, hey, like, what's your name? Like, I will just completely forget things, because the thing with me is, and that was really just a practice and a skill that I had to introduce into my work, which is when I'm finished with a session, I will clear, I will let go, I will cut ties, and I will move on. If I don't do that, that will cost me precious life force energy. Therefore, a lot of the times when I don't remember, is just because each session is like a new experience and a new chapter for me. That's how I keep it healthy on my end, and that's how I can hold this neutral and very present space for my clients. So I do have bad memory, but I do remember this piece because I feel like that was so pivotal. And I remember I had a consultation with this beautiful soul. It was really late in the evening. It was my last call of the day. And after the call, I was tired. I was like, listen, I want to wrap up the day. And I decided to run myself a bath, add some Epsom salt, some essential oils, and just relax and clear while I'm in there. And as I was in the bath, I remember I felt really unsettled. Something about that call had rattled me. And it's almost like there was this anxiety. And, that call was not special. It was not like, it was a great connection with that person. But I remember I just felt like something is about to bubble up to the surface. And it's almost like I had that anxiety. It's like sometimes we have that when things are about to drop in. Like you're just anxious for no reason. And then it just dropped in, and it was so loud and clear, which makes me think of, by the way, Nicole now. She was one of my clients. She had a very similar experience around water healing. If you haven't listened to this episode, check it out. It's called, I think, Tech to Water Healing. She's such a blast. But anyway, I had a very similar moment to her, which was I was in a bathtub, I was relaxing, and I was thinking about that consultation call because, like I said, something about that call moved something really deep within me. So this call was on my mind, and then it dropped in, you're here to guide the light workers. And you know what I did? I freaked the F out when I heard that, and I just told myself, accident, I'm just making this up, like that makes no sense. I was like, who am I to do this work? I'm just grappling with my own intuitive gifts and downloads that I receive. Who was I to guide anyone else with gifts sometimes even more powerful and profound than my gifts? I was like, no, ma'am, thank you, bye. Like, I was not ready to claim it. I was not ready to call it. I was not ready to embrace it. I was like, nah, this is not happening. And you know what's really funny, even though I was resisting it, I was already doing it because, like I said, majority of my people were moving into healing careers, but my ego was like, hell no. We just became, a holistic career change coach. We're not like doing another pivot. We're not doing another rebrand. This is bullshit. We're not going to do that. So basically what I did after is completely ignored this download and resisted it as long as I could. Because I did not, specify it in my marketing. I did not emphasize it on my website or my copy about me wanting to sort of focus more on the light workers. Why? Because I wanted to be inclusive. I didn't want to limit people walking into my practice. I didn't want to say no to someone who perhaps didn't want to become a healer, but they just wanted to shift to a different role. Lo and behold, in spite of what I said that I wanted, I didn't want, these healers, they kept on streaming in one after another. It was almost like funny. It was like the universe was so loud with the people that would find me somehow and would resonate with my energy. And it really was one of those instances where my niche found me, not the other way around. It's almost like I had no other choice but to just do this work. It was just so loud and so clear. And even though when I work with my clients, a lot of the times we will have these conversations of like, you're starting out. Is there a group of people that you're called to help? And sometimes there will be a group of people that they're called to help. However, it almost doesn't matter. That's why I say, don't overthink your offers. Don't overthink your niche. Because at the end of the day, your people are going to find you and they will tell you, almost like they will help you understand what kind of support you are here to provide, what kind of frequency as a light worker you hold. And I feel like for me, many of the people that were coming in to work with me were not sometimes even fully aware that they are light workers. And by the way, when I say light workers or healers, I don't just mean your typical like tarot card readers or energy workers or coaches. I mean, it could be even holistic business coaches or marketing specialists or spiritual artists or actresses and performers. I worked with so many different light workers that do not necessarily provide this conventional type of healing, but the frequency, the presence is healing. So there are so many flavors of healers, and I feel like that's one of the things that I want to talk about more, to like share with people and let them know. And I really felt like it was part of my mission to help them explore these avenues and different modalities, but also help them ground into turning this into some sort of practice or a business. So long story short, I kept on resisting embracing this for years. And I feel like I'm now finally ready to take this specific part of my mission and focus on those healers who are ready to claim their gifts and turn it into thriving practices, build businesses around it. And I know I just deeply, deeply understand these people. I understand a lot of their gifts. I may not have them, but as an intuitive, I can speak that language of those gifts. I understand the fears that they face because a lot of them I've faced myself, and I've coached and hold space for a lot of my clients who had those fears around being seen, around fear of not really making enough money to support themselves, around having all of that conditioning and prejudice that us as coaches, as healers, sometimes will face around the quote unquote normies and conventional people who have made more conventional choices in their lives. Like there's so much to be unpacked when we're embracing our gifts. You know, as I say this, where I'm like, listen, I'm claiming this part of my mission. Many of you, especially if you've worked with me or you have been following the podcast, you may think, well, duh, that's, clear as day. Like we've seen that you're doing this. But again, it really was a whole internal hero's journey for me to go on to be able to claim it and integrate it into my identity as a guide. And this has been a big deal for me. And moving forward, I feel like this will be reflected much more in my content and in my offers. Now, having said that, I'm not closing doors to anyone else who wants to perhaps move into, like I said, more traditional industry. But I found that it's usually, new, budding, aware, unaware healers who will appreciate my approach, my intuitive downloads for them, who will love a good tarot pull, who will enjoy when we check their astrology charts and transits, who want to learn about astrocartography, who are interested in human design. These are the people that I think get the most of my energy, my approach as a guide. I've also been much more intentional, by the way, like to extend to that, to add to that, I've been more intentional with who I work one-on-one. Not because I think I'm all that and, like I'm arrogant, not at all, but because I am embracing and refining and I'm prioritizing alignment even more above all else. Like I said, when I started, I would not always check in and I'd be like, hell yes, if you're here, that means it's meant to be. A lot of the times it was meant to be, but there has to be chemistry. There has to be trust. There has to be some sort of connection for us to create the best results for you as a client. And what I offer is also a lot more than your regular career coaching, because it's anywhere from like spiritual guidance to business strategy. And it will take a certain unique individual to be able to receive it and to even want to receive it that way. So I feel like I've been, in this part of my journey as a practitioner, I've just been even more unapologetic in refining my approach when it comes to client matching and client alignment. So this was one of the sort of internal shifts that I went through. Now, when it comes to external shift, well, first of all, obviously, all the violence and discord and chaos that is happening in the world in the collective right now, as sensitives, we feel that deeply, and it can be so scary and so overwhelming. And I feel like it's really forcing us to evaluate what's the most important for us. It's forcing us to reconnect to our core values, like family and connection and safety and freedom. It really almost like is humbling to be living, I feel like, in this in this current reality with what's going on, with the wars in different regions, in politics, with the economic, volatility, all of it is really humbling. It's really humbling. I really feel like similarly like what we experienced during COVID, where we had no other choice but to really look at ourselves and be like, am I enjoying this relationship? Am I enjoying this job? Do I even like myself? Can I even stay with myself for a prolonged period of time when I have nothing else to do? I feel like that was so sobering for many of us. And I feel like we are going through a version of this right now. It's a bit of a different, obviously, energy is a little more aggressive, but nonetheless, I see the medicine in this while also holding space that so many people are suffering. And I don't want to go there because I'm going to cry because that energy is just so overwhelming. So anyway, so on top of that collective shift, there's a shift happening, I feel like, in the healing and especially in the coaching industry. And for some of you might have noticed as well as clients or as fellow practitioners. I feel like especially prior and during COVID, we were living in this bubble of sort of inflated pricing for mental health practitioners, for the offers, for the support. And I myself was a product of some of, the business coaching that I received that would tell me to charge ridiculous, crazy money for coaching packages. And by the way, I'm fully owning it. I'm not shifting the blame. I own it. I was also probably part of that problem. Yeah, I fully own it. Like, I was part of the problem. I didn't know any other way. And I'm saying this and I feel like I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses because that was a big learning point for me as well. However, having said that, I will die on the cross saying that healing practitioners should be compensated very well for all the work that we do. But I feel like that inflated bubble has finally burst, like it always does. And we're all, including myself, we're tired of all of the algorithm, targeting us, bombarding us with offers, all of the lies in the marketing, all of the promises of perfect life and career and business. So I feel like so many of us became much more intentional and selective when it comes to spending money on getting any sort of help. And I think that's such a welcome shift in this industry. And I'm so here for it, even though I know that it can be very disturbing for some practitioners who were used to like earning a certain amount of money or, and again, I'm not saying that they're bad people or that they're trying to manipulate others and manipulate money out of them. I'm not saying that. It was just the reality of the industry. And I feel like that's also, when I'm really honest with myself, that was also that one part of my practice that never felt good to me, was that my work wasn't as accessible. Sure, I have podcasts, sure, I'd post free content on Instagram, but that is often just not enough because it can inspire us for a moment, it can shift us for a few days, and then if we're not careful, we're back to the old familiar ways, right? So having that support is sometimes can be completely life-changing. I worked with practitioners that I can honestly, hand on my heart say they changed my life. If not them, I would not be here. I would not be who I am. Today, I would be someone different, not necessarily worse or better, but like I totally feel like I owe it to them so much. That was another shift that I, started incorporating and integrating, which is moving forward. I want to introduce so many more accessible offers, moving more into maybe more courses, more short workshops, more masterclasses, all equally magical and practical, but still making it more available, because I feel like we are going through massive shifts in the job market, in the career and professional fields, so many of the professions, and I talked about it. And that's something that I'm acutely observing, like when it comes to like following what's happening in different industries, but also just intuitively reading what's happening with, say, AI coming in and so many jobs becoming obsolete. That's something that I'm so interested in, but also acutely aware how much help and how scary it is for such a big part of population. And it's just the beginning. This is just the initial whispers. It's going to get worse. So I am here thinking, how can I support these people? And not because I want to, again, exploit them in some way, and not because I want to earn more money, but because I'm like, no, there's a need, and I'm one of those people who could support them. And a lot of them will not have the money, or that disposable income to invest thousands of dollars of working with someone one-on-one, and they may need help, and I want to be someone who helps them. And it really comes from part of my mission. That's, like I said already, that's why I do what I do above all else. Trust me, if I didn't enjoy this, if I didn't believe in this, I would not be here. And that's kind of the message that I feel like I send to a lot of my clients sometimes, and they will come in and they'll want to, choose maybe misaligned offers that they think are good money. And it's okay to sometimes do that. But if that is a recurring theme, and you're saying that you're building an aligned, authentic business, and yet you create offers just to earn more money, it's not going to work long term, because you're going to get fed off of your offers. You will not want to be the one who delivers them. You will not be excited. You will not market them. You will not make money in the end. So I would rather have you choose something you are infatuated with and believe it and you can stand by. That's what's going to have the longevity that you need to make this business a success for you, but also a success for your clients. So with these courses, I feel like, I don't know how much I saw that myself, but like I see that really clearly, that I've always been the one who stood at the intersection of those realms of the spirit and the spiritual world, but also the other side of the grounded world of business. That's where you'll find me, on that intersection. So now I'm in the process of building out this new, I call it really universe. And a lot of it is really just for these budding new healers, the people who are waking up and seeing that, oh shit, I've been living in this matrix and it's not serving it anymore, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So your life will have to change, and it can be so disorienting at the beginning, because you don't know where to start. You don't know what your gifts are. You don't know the world of business, perhaps, if you want to go independent, right? Like there's so much that's happening. So I'm building out this universe to support these people, and it's going to be very accessible and hopefully exciting and hopefully empowering and healing for so many of you and many of other people who will be coming in. And unfortunately, I can't share more yet because we're still in the building stage, but I will give you a hint. The hint is Harry Potter. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm so excited about this. The reason why I'm sharing all of this is, for transparency, but also to keep myself accountable, and also to show you, like I said, that it's so normal and so common for you to grow, to change, to evolve, to pivot on an aligned career path. You are always going to be shifting. And if you want to own, or if you already own a soul-aligned business, it will always be shifting with you. And that's beautiful. It's not flaky. It's not inconsistent. It's not, bitch, make up your mind. It's evolution, okay? Now, obviously, I'm not talking, about shifting your business every 5 minutes either, right? We're not talking about the extremes, but you know what I mean. It will be evolving, and it's going to be really scary to let go of the familiar, and yet the only way is surrender, as per usual. Now, on another note, aside from, my first and forever love, which is this intuitive coaching and purpose and career change, I've also been exploring and expanding into other type of businesses. Again, that's not something that I share about or talk about, but I thought, again, maybe it's inspiring for some of you, because you guys, I love, love, love business. I just love everything about a business. I love the concepting phase. I love the setup. I love the launching. I love the challenges. It just makes me drool. Had I stayed in corporate, which I couldn't anymore, right? Because like we said, once you wake up, the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back in. You can't unsee the reality of misaligned work. But had I stayed, I would have moved towards change management and business consulting for sure. I mean, for one, my background is in business and finance. But I feel like at this stage in my life, I'm going back to some of it and I'm reclaiming some of it, but not in a random way, but in a very, again, intentional, aligned way. So I feel like this whole phase that I'm going through is a lot of discerning intentionality that I feel like I did not necessarily had before, because in the past, as someone who's quite energetic, and loud and strong, I would just bulldoze my way through, businesses, offers, like all of that, right? There was not a lot of refining. And I feel like now I'm in the stage of being extremely intentional with my energy, my choices, and my decisions. And I am building out some new ventures. Not all of them are directly related to coaching. Some of them are adjacent to coaching, but not all of them are related to coaching. But it really is something that is starting to feel so fun and so interesting to me. And I feel like, I'm a kid in a candy store when I'm setting up a new venture. And again, I'm really mindful not to spend too much time on it because it is still my side project. Like coaching is my priority, my life. But I'm just having so much fun adding, this piece back in, but adding it in differently. Now that I feel that I'm much more settled in my practice, that it has roots, is grounded, I know exactly what's happening. And again, that's also the coaching that, by the way, I offer to my clients. We all have many interests. But what I will say, try not to launch it all at the same time, just because I've seen so many times how it can crash and burn. And it can be very hard to maintain if you have multiple things going on at the same time. And then what will happen, none of your businesses, none of your projects will get the TLC that they deserve. So all of it is going to be like kind of there, but not really, kind of half-assed. And we don't want to do it like that. Because I know so many of you are multi-passionate, and I really honor that. But when it comes to turning your interest into actual revenue generating businesses, you do want to phase it out. You do want to be intentional while still honoring these multiple passions that you have. And I feel like such a good example of that is Carol. She was on a podcast. She was the one who was talking about building an edtech company as an ex-Microsoft employee. And when she came in to work with me, she was like a serial business starter. She would come up with a new idea every 5 minutes. She was always coming with a new venture, not a single one of them coming to fruition ever. She was in her early 40s and not a single one. She's been doing that for years. Not a single one of them was an actual business. It was all a hobby. But for her, living is in this, Delulu land in a way, and convincing herself that she's an entrepreneur when she had nothing to show for. And what she really was a entrepreneur. She wanted to be an entrepreneur, but she wasn't. And I say that, by the way, with no judgment, with a lot of love, because we still laugh about it to this day. But what she managed to do is to turn it around, and she started focusing on building one business, but she found so many multiple aspects within that one business that were interesting, new challenges, building out different departments, kind of moving between functions. And, her need for variety was then met by one venture that she's now grown into big bad business. Now, will she sell it at some point and start something new? I'm almost certain that will happen. However, she really healed that pattern. And she learned to stay in one project, but still feel challenged and entertained by it. So if you are multi-passionate, if you're man-gen, like that's my invitation for you. If you see that you are getting distracted by all of the ideas and like these nudges, but you never build it to fruition until it becomes an actual business. Now, for sure, not all of it needs to become an income-generating business. I'm not saying you need to monetize every little hobby and passion that you have. I'm not saying about that either, but I think we're on the same page. So that's when it comes to my business. I feel like another piece that I was working through, and I was really, I was like contemplating whether I should share about that, whether I should maybe overshare about that. But that was a big shift in my personal life and my relationship. Now, I don't speak about my relationships, like romantic relationships, on here at all, just because I've always been mindful of the other person who did not choose to maybe have a little more of be more in the public eye as perhaps I have chosen with my business. But at the beginning of the year, my relationship of 7 years, actually nearly 8 years with my partner disintegrated. But I will say this decision was not sudden. Again, the same theme, it was intentional and thought through. And I feel like I'm still processing it, because the sad and the hard part, which I think makes many of us, especially as women, but I'm sure, men too, what makes us overstay in relationships is that it's very hard to leave a connection that's good. My relationship was good. It wasn't bad, it was good. There was respect, there was support, and I said this many times, if I had not had this support, I would not have fully transitioned and I would not have built the business because he was my rock through it all. And I will, eternally be grateful that he believed in me in those moments when I couldn't, when my gremlins would take over and make me doubt myself so much. So there was a lot of love and respect and support. It obviously wasn't perfect. We had our fair share of challenges and arguments, but overall, it was a good relationship. And for the longest time, I feel like I was trying to convince myself that it was enough for me, that I should be grateful. And don't get me wrong, I am so grateful. And yet deep down, I didn't want good anymore. I wanted great. I wanted it bigger. I wanted even more deep connection. I wanted more fun. I just wanted more. And I felt so incredibly selfish for that. And I shamed myself for that for so long. It was really long few years of me working through it and getting really, really honest with myself around what my actual needs are and what are perhaps just symptoms of a long-term relationship. Because let's be honest, right? Long-term relationships are not exciting a lot of the times. Things will get more quiet, partners will get complacent. And so I really had to ask myself, am I being unreasonable for wanting more, for wanting great? Is this what the reality of a long-term relationship is? So yeah, it was really painful to dissect and find answers to these questions because, like I said, leaving good so we could make space for great is incredibly hard. And sometimes I feel like much easier to leave perhaps a more toxic relationship when it's clear that it's not good for you. And I had done that in the past and never looked back. But leaving good in the hope of great, not even having any guarantees that it will be great. And by the way, not even knowing if my good was actually great. But I didn't know that at the point. That's effing scary. That's really scary. That takes balls to do. So therefore, before that happened, I really made sure that if we were deciding to end the relationship, I'm not going to have any regrets because I've let relationships in the past on a whim and I never looked back. And sometimes I wonder, did I really give it my best? Did I really do everything I could? And in this situation, I really feel like I have calm conscience because I did everything I can to ensure that we've had all the conversations. We were both clear on where we stand. We gave each other space. We were honest with our needs and wants. We stopped people pleasing each other and got real honest with what his needs are and what my needs are. So when it did disintegrate, it felt calm and it felt right. So that is something that I've also been processing at the back of my mind all throughout the year as I was, still showing up for my business and still doing what I do. And, for the first time ever, really, I'm giving myself time and space to grieve and to feel and to start healing. And I'm not rushing to be in another relationship. I'm just focusing on dating myself, as the kids say these days. And it's been honestly, it's been like the full spectrum of the rainbow. It's been really fun and exhilarating, and it's been extremely sad, and sometimes it's lonely, and there's a lot of discoveries that I'm making, but I feel like it's all for the best, for the next relationship, for not having a relationship. I'm honestly just open for it all. I think for the first time ever, I was still living so deeply in that conditioning of what a woman in her 30s should have achieved and should have, and the kids and the ring and the house and all of that. And really it's just about making sure that whatever decisions I'm making moving forward are authentic to me. And I'm just a weird potato. I'm not sure where that came from. You guys, one of my nicknames is Batata or Potato. I'm not sure if I said that on a podcast. See, I don't remember anything. My Portuguese friends gave me a nickname Batata because I'm obsessed with potatoes, you guys. So yeah, I'm just like a weird potato. I am a misfit. I do not fit in a lot of the conventional structures, I can act my way through it, and I've done it. I'm really good at sort of adjusting and sometimes disguising if I need to. That's what I had to do to survive. But right now, at this phase in my life, I'm like, I'm not going to do that to myself anymore. I think there's something about, a lot of women talk about, getting closer to your 40s and like starting to feel more and more comfortable in your skin and who you are. And it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable, but it's also like so good. So yeah, there you have it. Again, some of what I'm sharing may not be news for you, but again, it was news for me to share it openly and to own it. And if you resonate with any of it, please do reach out, like DM me on Instagram. I just love connecting with you, especially if you resonate with aspects of what I am currently going through, or if you want to ask some questions, or if you want to just share what you are going through. I'm so open to have that. Sending you a really big hug, lots of love, and wishing you a magical week. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you enjoy this content, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast and leave a quick review to help us share the message of aligned work with the world. And if you'd like to learn more about how to find and transition into your very own purpose-led career or business that feels like getting paid for being yourself, make sure you check out the episode notes below. Have a wonderful week.